Social media giants like Facebook, Twitter, WhatsApp have come under fire from the Ministry of Home Affairs after the Delhi riots. There are now reports that there may be new regulations to ensure social media platforms control messages that could amplify rumors and cause violence. While it is true that a lot of information and misinformation on the Delhi riots, where the death toll, by the way, has now crossed 50, came from social media platforms, so did a lot of genuine information real time about what exactly is going on. So is the government's warning to social media giants justified, or is it a case of finding a scapegoat? To speak more on this, I'm joined today by Vineet Goenka, member and ex-national co-convener of the IT cell of the BJP, Apar Gupta, Supreme Court lawyer and co-founder of the Internet Freedom Foundation, and Nikhil Pahwa, founder, editor and publisher of MediaNama.com. Welcome to all of you and thank you for speaking with us today. Apar, let me begin with just your quick take on what we're hearing, that there may be new regulations, there may be new guidelines. We've heard of this before. There's already a pitch and process to be able to track the origin of social media messages. But in this particular case, how would you look at the role of social media? Because it's more gray than just black and white. It is also true that a lot of misinformation and propagation of hate speech that could have contributed to the violence came via social media.
Tamanna, I agree with the premise that social media was used to a large extent to inflame communal passions, which did lead to violence in Delhi. I say this as a resident of Delhi, also as an avid social media user who saw communal propaganda on it, which may have incited violence. And also one always saw a grotesque sharing of live images and videos at the time this violence was taking place. Now, stepping back from this, the first thing to understand is this something novel in terms of the Home Ministry meeting social media platforms? And if we go back in public reports by itself, there are regular meetings held between the union government, specifically the Home Ministry, as well as large internet platforms on a regular basis. These meetings are not having a high degree of transparency, but have been ongoing for a long period of time, in which the government routinely puts demands to social media companies. And when it comes without transparency, one is left wondering what is actually transpiring in these meetings. The second thing is these meetings are also what goes above and beyond a legal framework. What we need is a legal framework which can provide a certain level of certainty and also provide for instances which have clear duties laid out for social media companies. The government is right now considering what kind of obligations above and beyond the pre-existing due diligence compliances by large platforms needs to be considered. And I do hope that these are done in a manner which do not undermine free expression as well as privacy. And the reason for this is that free expression is also necessary on these platforms to coordinate, help, aid, as well as rescue services between citizens by themselves. Privacy is important because quite often there are people also who are corresponding on these platforms who are under threat. This is a challenge which is being faced by several democracies, and I hope that the union government also takes this into account while drafting these regulations, which have been a long time coming now.
Vineet Goenka, we've had the opportunity to have a similar discussion here a few times in the past as well. And the reason why I keep coming back to it, because I think it is core to the experience all of us are having right now. And it's truly a conundrum. I don't think there's any clear answer. You too would agree that while your party, for example, is excellent at using social media for your message, there are times when it can be very harmful. Where do you draw the line? And in this case, is it fair to blame social media? How about going after the people who are spreading that hate?
You rightfully said, the platform is not to be blamed because platform does not have any kind of emotions. It are the people who are behind the content who have to be blamed. Having said so, I think there are certain duties the platform should do it, and two, there should be certain regulations which I could propose as personal individual to the government. I feel which will solve the problem. Now, the duties is that any platform, whether it is social media or media, the regulation of the content has to be done by the platform. The platform makes millions of dollars. Why can't they put in technology which can check in this kind of hate speech spreading across, decisive messages spreading across? They can always put this kind of technologies where they can arrest this kind of messages before it goes to a larger population. Also pinpoint which are the handles which create this kind of damages to the society. Now, there are two more propositions which we have been advocating, and I hope one day there is a rule in this regard. Is one, there should be a KYC of every account. This manless account is a danger to the society. Yes, in a democracy, you have a right to speak. You can speak anything which is pro-government, against government, within the framework of the constitution, but cannot do it anonymously. Anonymity also gives rise to fake news, half news, semi-newses, deemed newses, and created newses. So here we should put a KYC system whereby every account has a KYC so that you know who is the man behind the account. A. B. Put in a system whereby you bring the servers or the data of these particular social media platforms, irrespective of whoever they are, to India so that the law enforcement agencies have access to it. When there are these kind of cases, law enforcement agencies can access them and decide whether this content is wrong or right, and they can be prosecuted in case they are wrong. This is the second demand. And third, which is not the preview of today's mandate, but I feel the social media companies make a lot of revenues and they do not contribute to the taxation of the country. I think this is high time we start talking about that. The revenue which they generate by Indians within the country and also by Indians outside the country should be taxed as we tax the newspapers or any television channels, because this is a media channel. So these three things: one, KYC; second, data centers within the country; and third, taxation provision should be there.
As you said, this is not the purview of the conversation, and in fact, this is a conversation happening all over the world, that how much tax should these companies pay because they operate in so many countries. I'll leave that aside, and I want to come to you for a follow-up, because what you said on the face of it seems largely it's commonsensical that law enforcement authorities should be able to know. The problem, honestly, and I'm speaking frankly here, is of faith on what law enforcement authorities will do with that information. Right now, you have a situation, and I'm speaking in context of the Delhi riots, where people who have made insightful speeches, and they're not hiding behind some anonymous account, you can see them. There is no action against them. So how is anyone going to have faith that there will be...
No, you are presuming that there are no action.
There will be action and correct action, and there will be no misuse of this information. What is really the point if the Delhi police right now is being questioned for its conduct in any case? And Delhi police is complaining that, XYZ social media platform didn't take down a video soon enough. One wonders, should the priority be to rectify the actions of the Delhi police and professionalize all police forces in the country, or go after who took how long to take down a tweet?
Now you have asked multiple questions in one go, and let me answer each of these questions patiently. Number one, is there a need of reforms in the police, technological upgradation of the police, funding of the police? Answer is yes. We as a country have done less for the policemen, and we should do that so that they are comfortable, they are abreast with the technologies, and they also need tools and techniques and training which is required as for 2020, not as for 1980s or 1990s. So that is undoubted a thing where thereby resources should be provided, training should be provided. Having said so, social media companies cannot be protected from one funda where they do not respond, and that's why the demand of data sovereignty, the demand of bringing the data back to India is getting strengthened every day, that they do not cooperate when they have been asked to cooperate. Now you cannot put a alibi that police reforms have to take place, so social media companies will not cooperate. It is independent. Social media companies are a private company making profit. They make billions of dollars through India. They better cooperate. There is no other two way of this. Number three, you said that there are accounts which do not hide under anonymity and yet spread hatred. Please bring to the notice of the police, CP Delhi, or you can also mark
about
it
accounts, Vineet, I'm talking about various political leaders who have indulged in hate speech and there have been no action. The courts right now are hearing cases of whether there should be FIRs.
I would request you and your audience. I would request you and your audience. Of course, there should be an FIR if you feel that content which has been put is not right. Whether the accounts are known or whether are anonymous accounts, you can always report them to CP Delhi. In case you have not done that, please do it again. If your audience are listening, my account can be used, my account can be marked, and I'll make sure they're in turn been marked to the police.
No.
And I assure you one thing, the police right now is under very professional hand. And they are really doing work, and they have shown very high degree of patience, which no police in the world has shown. So let me tell you, the restraint which they have shown, the professional conduct which they have shown is unparalleled to any other force in the world.
Okay, well, there would be multiple views on whether that was professional conduct or not. There have been condemnation from all round on the conduct of the Delhi police for the first couple of days. But again, that is not the purview of this debate. I'm asking that question in the context of what should be the priorities of the government right now. And is pulling up Facebook, WhatsApp and Twitter the top priority when there seems to be bigger concerns and bigger questions? Let me bring Nikhil Pava into the conversation. Nikhil, hi. Good to have you on. We're talking about whether there will be and there should be a clampdown on social media in light of what we've seen in Delhi riots. Delhi riots has, we're still finding bodies right now, and the same question could be asked even about coronavirus. Because there is so much misinformation out there. There is so much misinformation out there, and governments really around the world are wondering what to do about it. So is this government. When at the same time, the conduct of agencies are under this very government are being questioned.
So, Tamanna, this is not a new issue. In fact, governments across the world are grappling with misinformation. Singapore, for example, has a fake news law where a minister is allowed to ask for correction of misinformation and also take down other misinformation. This has been widely criticized as giving disproportionate power to a government functionary to actually censor speech effectively. In the same way, Pakistan a couple of weeks ago released its own social media rules where they're giving their telecommunications authority, the PTA, the right to ask for takedown of particular types of content that they might deem illegal. And now that's gone. Those rules have gone for review because there was a lot of criticism of these rules. India also is looking at making changes, and there's a case in the Supreme Court that asks for what Mr. Goenka was talking about, linking of accounts. Doing KYC for social media accounts. In my view, that would be a disproportionate response. No country that is looking at addressing misinformation is looking at this linking of or KYC for social media accounts as a solution to this problem, because that would have a disproportionate chilling effect on free speech. I probably think that it would not stand the test in the Supreme Court of the right to privacy, forcing people to identify themselves for everything that they say in what is effectively seen as a digital public sphere. Is like having CCTV cameras on you at all the time and tracking everything that you are saying. So for the actions of a few, all should not be punished is the basic approach that we need to take. And so what we need to do here is have a best efforts basis. So social media platforms should cooperate with the police and give them the information that is possible for them to give without violating privacy. I think this is really, really important, because we shouldn't throw the baby out with the bathwater. We should not have disproportionate amount of profiling by the government, verification of IDs, and also disproportionate censorship. Let's also remember that that during the riots, a lot of legitimate information and videos were published on social media which was showing what kind of actions the police was taking, and which were not picked up by TV channels or not shown by TV channels. So social media is an important medium for expression of free speech. The Delhi police itself has asked for evidence based on the information that has been seen online, and so people may not want to risk themselves becoming targets of either government or police because they are sharing important information.
Okay.
We don't want to create a censorship regime or create a regime where people will self-censor.
Vineet, I just want you to respond to couple of points that Nikhil made, and one of them was, and this is also true, that during the last few months of strife, a lot of information was also coming in through social media. Now, the danger of that is it's unfiltered. Nikhil, you're right. Sometimes it seems faster than traditional news communication channels, because then there are more checks and balances that we have to do before we put something out. So we would not put a lot of things out. There is no such filter in social media. It's a free for all. How do you ensure that that freedom is there, that flow of information is there, Vineet? Because that's also important. And how do you ensure that things like linking KYC doesn't lead to targeting?
So, I don't understand this logic where the capitalist business, which is making billions of dollars, the issues which should be tackled by them and addressed by them, they have been pushed on the government. They are platforms. Like you are a platform, you are a TV channel. How you are responsible? There are rules and regulations which help you. Are you been censored? In this country, censure was only applied between 1976 to 78 when there was emergency. So let us all grow up. This is a very fair democracy where power exchanges have happened. Prime ministers have won elections, they have lost elections, handed over the power without a single bullet being fired. Censorship has been here only in emergency. So when a TV channel can strive, they can speak for or against the government, for or against a policy of the government. Newspapers can speak. People can come on the road and protest. Shaheen Bagh can be there for 2 months, 3 months. What is this misinformation being spread that there will be censorship? Censorship is in China. We are talking about allowing any channel, every channel, any medium, any platform to come and prosper in India, provided they follow the rules of the country. And what is wrong in that? Does it call it censorship? So do not use misunderstanding, do not use words which will create misunderstandings like censorship. A. B. When we have KYC for bank accounts, do you think that every authority runs behind your bank account? Answer is no. It only helps you to corrupt down certain malicious intent. There is a KYC for mobiles. Do you mean that every mobile number has been tracked by the agencies or the government just because you are pro-government or against government? Answer is no. Same way, if there is a KYC, you need not worry if you have not done anything wrong. I don't do anything wrong, so I don't worry. If the authorities come behind me for checking this thing, then there is law, there are courts where you can go and take recourse in case you feel there has been exigencies by the authority.
I wish
Number 4,
reality reflected
blaming the
this,
police
Vineet.
for anything and summarily has
I
become
wish-
a fashion. Let me complete.
Yeah.
Let me complete, Tarunji. Please allow me to complete. Now, then there are questions of anonymity in the meeting or the clampdowns or non-transparency of the meeting which happened between the minister or the ministry and the platform. Well, the platforms are not transparent about how the numbers of followers go up and come down. Why do they have a shadow blocking? Why do they have some content being spread very fast, some content not being shown? They are not transparent about who are putting the things which are against the country. I'll give you one example. Twitter allowed a promotion, a paid ad of Khalistani terrorist. I objected to it, and the Twitter executive plainly wrote me one WhatsApp message, sir, we have taken down the account. Now please tell me, madam, had your channel shown an account which is breaking India, do you think your channel would have been spared by any government, irrespective of the government party which is ruling this? They would have come behind you, ma'am.
Yeah.
Now Twitter cannot hide behind say that we don't operate from India, so we better as a citizen understand that there is a responsibility. They are making billions of dollars. They could have put in technological things which they are born to do.
Making billions of
and
dollars
what
or
they do
$0.
is they use many times the so-called free speech advocates
I get your point.
who do
Vineet,
not
I get your
talk
point.
responsibly.
Hang on. Let's get responses in. I get your point, but I'm just saying that responsibility, and if I go by your logic, that exists whether they make
So let us
billions
talk
of
about
dollars or
Twitter's
$0.
transparency.
Responsibility
Why are
is
the numbers of the
responsibility.
people,
Okay,
certain people
I know
go down
Nikhil wants
even
to
when there
come
are
in.
new
Let me get
followers who
Apart to
follow them?
respond, and then I'll go
Why
to
are the
Nikhil.
tweets being shadow blocked?
Yes, one sec. Apart,
And there should be also transparency to the funding of these NGOs and think tanks,
No, I think
which
Nikhil is
always
talking
talk
about
about anti-police and
transparency of the
anti-government.
government towards its citizens.
There is no transparency
You're
about their
talking
funding.
about transparency of social media giants to the government. They're two different things. We're
Oh
talking
my
about
goodness!
transparency
So
to the
yeah,
citizens. 1 minute.
so
Let
you know
people
what?
respond.
That
One
pains
sec.
me.
Let's take the discussion
So that
forward.
pains
Please,
me.
hold your horses.
There is no transparency.
Yes, Apart, please come in.
Yeah. So
1 sec. Let's get responses and keep it flowing. Yes, Apart.
I think I've just come out of a reality discussion field, and there's so much to respond to on basis of fact by itself, which is beautiful. But I will just go back to a fundamental premise which was being debated. If we read the anatomy of hate speech and violence as it's being spread, even prior to social media, and I think there's no better work than on the 1984 anti-Sikh pogrom, and then in 2002 also what happened in Gujarat, both books being authored by the same author, Manoj Mitta, in which he shows that high political functionaries are usually ones which condone or make hate speeches which is then rebroadcast to an entire political apparatus, which signals impunity. So it is something which is now mixed with social media. Social media does provide a larger audience, a faster pace of dissemination. However, the underlying speech which is inciting violence needs to be made by a functionary and then be accorded a level of impunity. It is that impunity, lack of legal action, which signals to people that they can indulge in violence. So let us first deal with that. Of course, I'm not denying that social media does play a role in this, but we need to understand the very germination of violence by itself arises from public functionaries or from people in positions of power who make hate speeches and then enjoy legal impunity. The second thing I would just like to respond is that when it comes to social media platforms, it is not my case that they by themselves are completely without any degree of blame. But when we do make any kind of regulations, we have to be very cognizant how it will impact not the platform, but the end user, who is the citizen of India, who under Part 3 enjoys fundamental rights. And despite what people may say, Article 19(1)(a), which is the fundamental right to freedom of speech and expression, has been through judgments as well as through government measures by itself, including this present government, including high political functionaries, been restated again and again to be a central value of modern, pluralistic, independent India. Hence, let us not wish that away. And it is important also on social media because for the first time, people do enjoy a large degree of audience. Now, how do we bring a higher degree of responsibility without impairing privacy and free speech is a challenge, as I said initially. And this requires a policy conversation. This requires a rational outlook as opposed to name calling, as opposed to opportunism in which people are seeking to, extend political levers and make platforms rather than
No,
neutral
frankly,
bodies.
it's beyond a question of one government and one policy maker. So let me. Yeah.
Because Tamanna 66A was brought on by one government, defended in Supreme Court by another government.
No, you have,
So I would say that
yeah, you have
this
state
tendency
governments
stretches
across parties.
across.
There are,
Yes,
you have state governments across parties. Vineet, I know you're smiling because you're feeling that it's fairness. But in all fairness, those in power and those running governments want to have a tight control, no matter what party they're from. It's like a natural urge. 1 minute, let Nikhil come in. Let Nikhil come in on this. So, but you have to keep the balance because Nikhil, you have to admit it's going out of hand.
Can I respond? Because you have blamed a lot to the government.
Yeah, but,
You have put a very,
one
very
by one. You
high
will get a
degree of
chance.
blame.
Vineet,
Tamanna, can I answer
have
you
I ever
first
not
before
given
Nikhilji
a
comes
fair
in?
chance to everyone? Anyone who watches
No,
this show knows
you
that.
blamed the government that it wants a tight government
All
control. So let me,
governments, all
can I respond
governments is
that?
in the nature of all governments is what I said. One sec, let Nikhil come in and let me ask you the counter. And let me take the example of coronavirus now, if we move away from riots, because this goes from one thing to the other. It's ridiculous. The kind of stuff which is online is ridiculous. People believe it and people have no hesitation in spreading it further. And it's taking on ridiculous proportions. Right now, everyone's obsessed with the coronavirus, and then you can see the level of misinformation out there. Governments can't just turn a blind eye and say this is people's free speech. Maybe it is someone's free speech to say, hey, you will get coronavirus if you eat kulfi. But it's wrong. And someone has to do something about it.
So Tamanna, keep in mind that the government has a lot of authority, a lot of legitimacy and respect of the people. And I think it's important for the government to use these very platforms to address misinformation proactively. In fact, in previous situations of riots, especially in Bangalore, around where there was a riotous situation during the Kaveri protests, the Bangalore police went online and proactively, they went on Facebook, on Twitter, on WhatsApp, and proactively tried to dispel misinformation, which helped calm things down, helped address fears. The government also has SMSs as a medium. So I think this is important for the Ministry of Health to take up and deal with it in that manner. At the same time, I think it's also important for platforms to act when notified, and this is what exactly they've done. So if you read the news story on the basis of which we're having this discussion, Facebook, when it highlighted the Delhi riots as an incident, and then took down misinformation and also hateful speech more proactively. Twitter is what failed at doing this. So there is a responsibility that the platforms must take up to deal with it, but also it's important that free speech doesn't get affected. Mr. Goenka had made a point that platforms are like TV channels, and just like TV channels are accountable, platforms also need to be held accountable. In fact, we need to remember that the Section 79 of the IT Act, which provides them this protection, was created to protect them against liability of the user created by the users who use them. So if I say something hateful, these platforms should not be held liable for it, and when notified, they should take it down. If they don't take it down, then they take on liability. And this case actually happened because Avnish Bajaj, who's now an investor, was arrested for a porn clip that someone uploaded on a platform that he was running. Now, a TV channel does not allow that because it does editorial control. Platforms do not do editorial control. So I think equating the two is wrong. And also just remember, these platforms are enablers of speech. So if you put in proactive filtration mechanisms or proactive censorship mechanisms and hold platforms accountable, we will be able to use it less. We will not be able to even put in legitimate information or have conversations with other people online, because the platforms will err on the side of caution. They will start censoring more content. And Mr. Goenka also made this point about KYC for bank accounts,
I'm running
etc.
out of time. I
You
need to wrap
cannot-
this conversation.
You cannot have the same standards for
Yeah.
you cannot have the same standards.
I got that point.
Very quickly, Tamanna. You can't have the same standards for speech as you have for banking. Banking and financial transactions are very different from free speech.
So he's responding, Vineet, to your point, saying that there's KYC for your bank account, there's KYC for your mobile phone. He's saying it's not the same thing. You can't have KYC for free speech because then you know that someone's watching. It will have a chilling effect. Vineet, your response, I request you to keep it short because this would be the last comment.
Yeah. If you want, I will not speak also. That's not a problem. But I'll tell you, you cannot cut the hands, legs, cut ears, nose, pierce eyes through of the government and then say, why don't you act? So one way you will say, there is a free speech, don't I action when we ask about KYC. And then when, something happens, they say, why didn't you act? The people who make billions of dollars, they cannot be taxed, they cannot be questions. But the same, the transparency of the discussion has to be there. And there is no transparency of
Mr. Goenka,
funds which are being received by the so-called
I haven't
think
talked
tanks
about
and NGOs,
taxation.
which
They
represent
should be
the
taxed.
platforms.
There is no issue with taxation.
So please,
Please not talk
I
about
never
taxation
interjected.
because
I
it's
never
not the topic
interjected.
of the show.
Tamanna ji, I
One
never
minute.
interjected.
Let
No,
Vineet
please do
Goenka
not.
finish his
I've not
point. Yes.
I never interjected.
Yeah.
Ma'am, why are you not allowing me to speak? So you talk about free speech and you don't allow me to speak. What is this, Nikhil ji? So please, bother about what is your funding coming about. Let us have a transparency about that. So let me tell you very categorically. There should be KYC. There has to be responsibility of the platforms to be fixed. The data has to be brought back to the country. And the people who try to divide this country, try to break this country, try to create differences in religion should be identified. And they cannot be given a leeway under the name of free speech. This free speech comes with a certain degree of responsibility. And these people who represent the platforms, as if they are independent, they should also be transparent about where are their funds coming from. Why don't they share their sources of funds?
Yeah. Okay, source of funds and taxation is a very important issue, but it's a different one. So let's not go into there. Vineet, I'm going to take the last points you made, that people who
that is very important. Once you do that, then you know where is the revenue coming from. Who are the people who are funding it? I'll tell you one incident which happened, Tamanna ji. I was in a round table.
Yeah.
A very senior police officer of Maharashtra.
Yeah.
Very senior. Just give me 10 seconds. He was there and he made a very responsible statement that tweets in Marathi were coming from Pakistan for the RA this thing. Now they could track that only when the platforms cooperate. If they don't cooperate, then how do you know it? So if you have KYC, you can identify who the thing is.
Okay. No,
And
I
also
want to
these
take,
people who represent
from
these
what you said as I
channels,
close,
these
because
platforms,
this is a
they should be
conversation that
transferred
can go
about their
on and
source
on,
of
and I
funds.
do have to end. I do have to end, but I want to take from what you said, where you said that those who are making hateful, insightful speeches cannot hide behind freedom of speech. Agree with you. Please penalize them, whether they're making those speeches online or offline. Don't restrict it just to online. You will have to take action. Those who are behind this kind of hate should
You bring
not
to my
be
notice anybody,
spared,
I'll make sure I also
even if
cooperate with
cuts
you, and I'll
close
take
to
it
home.
both of us
Okay,
can
I'm gonna end
jointly
it
go and
there. I
fight
want
this
to thank
menace
all
of
of you for
hate
joining us
speech.
on this show this evening.